Hi, my name's Gwyn Richards. I'm a supply chain consultant and trainer with Apprise Consulting Limited. Welcome to this short informative video from our How To Logistics online series. In this episode, we look at the different types of storage systems available to you within the warehouse. These are the main types of storage systems available. We're going to look at each one in turn, show you photographs of each type, and give you the advantages and disadvantages of each storage system. Our first storage method is called block stacking, sometimes referred to as bulk storage. So here we have high density storage on the warehouse floor, but as you can see from the photographs, we're not using the full cubic capacity of the warehouse. The two examples that we're showing here, we can see block stack of white goods in the photograph on the left hand side, so we can see washing machines stacked one on top of the other, and on the right hand side we can see palletized goods, again one pallet on top of another pallet on top of another pallet. There are advantages. We don't have to invest a large amount of money in infrastructure such as racking. However, there are also disadvantages. As we can see from the photographs, we're not using the full cubic capacity of the building, and there's always the possibility of damaging product at the bottom of the column of product, for example. So this type of storage is best for large quantities of single stock keeping units. Note also that first in, first out cannot apply, because once we put a pallet on the ground, we're going to put more pallets above that item and in front of that item. So we can only operate on a last in, first out basis. The introduction of racking allows companies to store products in their own individual locations. This racking, sometimes called adjustable pallet rack or APR, sometimes referred to as well as selective racking, consists of uprights, beams and back supports, as we can see from the photograph. They're anchored to the floor with adjustable beams, so we can adjust the beam height to reflect the height of the goods that are stored within the location. The photograph that we can see on the right has the beams all at uniform heights. And as you can see there is, to a degree, a waste of cubic space, as the products are not at the same height as the locations themselves. The advantage, however, is that we can actually access each individual pallet or carton within the rack itself. This is a depiction of racking within a warehouse which I designed a few years ago, and what we can see here is, rather than have all of the beams at the same level, which would mean that we're not using all of the cubic capacity of the warehouse, we can actually have our beams located so that we can put the right size product on the right level. And as we can see there, we're utilizing to a greater extent all of the cubic capacity within the warehouse itself. In terms of warehouse storage, we can also go to narrow aisle. So adjustable pallet rack or selective racking can be used for wide aisle racking, but also for narrow aisle racking as well. So it's exactly the same racking, it's just the fact that the aisles are narrower, and we can see the photograph on the left hand side. We're operating with a very narrow aisle truck in an aisle width of about 1.65 meters, and the operator is going up to around about 14 meters within the warehouse itself. So what we're gaining with this is greater storage capacity. However, there can be a downside in terms of how long it takes to put away and retrieve the products themselves. This is double deep racking. So
what we're doing here is reducing the number of aisles within the warehouse itself. But one of the drawbacks is that we can't operate on a first in, first out basis. So as we can see there are two pallets back to back on one side, and then a further two pallets back to back on the other side. So we've done away with the aisle between rack 5 and rack 6. What we also need is a forklift truck with extendable forks that can actually reach the second pallet in the racking system. This is drive-in racking. You can also have drive-through racking as well. In terms of drive-in racking, the operator drives the forklift truck into the racking itself. We've done away with the aisles here. So the operator will drive into the racking and deposit the pallet on load support rails on either side. So there's nothing directly underneath the pallet apart from these load support rails. So we can see on the right hand side that we have to have exactly the same product in each row of racking. In terms of drive-through racking, we can operate with first in, first out. However, we then lose the capability of infilling those locations until we've cleared out all of the other pallets. So it's very much a last in, first out operation. We also need good quality pallets, because as they're resting on the load support rails, then there is always a possibility of the pallet actually collapsing within the rack itself. So this is called mobile racking and also mobile shelving, sometimes referred to as sliding racks and shelves. So these are mounted on guides and rails, and they open up when you actually require an item from a location. So although it has the advantages of being able to store a lot of product in a small space, it takes much longer to put away and retrieve the product themselves. You may well have seen these sliding shelving in museums and in libraries, where you turn a handle and the shelves open up, you can get your item, and then close the shelving back up again. This is called pushback racking, and as the term suggests, we put a pallet onto what is called a skate, and the pallet then is pushed back into the rack by depositing another pallet. So again, here we can store a lot of product in a smaller space. However, again, it only operates on a last in, first out basis, and it can be quite an expensive way of racking product. This is called flow or live racking and shelving. So rather than pushing back the pallets, what we're doing now is we're introducing the pallets from one side of the rack, and that slides down the rack to the front of the racking face, so that we can pick from one side of the rack and deposit our pallets on the other side of the rack. Again, as you can see from the photograph on the right hand side, we have to have the same product in each row of racking. Not necessarily at each level, but on each row of racking. And we can see here that the advantage of having flow rack compared to pushback racking, for example, or narrow aisle or very narrow aisle racking, is that we can replenish from one side, pick from the other, and reduce the amount of travel within the warehouse, and also reduce congestion as well. This is called cantilever racking, and cantilever racking that we can see on the left hand side is used mainly for very long items, so piping, for example, or wood products or carpets. On the right hand side we have something called pigeonhole storage, which requires specialist equipment, and we can see the operator there on the forklift actually pushing the items into the pigeonhole racking itself. So again, used for kind of lightweight, longer products. In this example, we have something called satellite racking, sometimes referred to as shuttle racking. So the racking is very similar to drive-in racking, but this time the forklift truck doesn't actually physically drive into the racking. It utilizes what's called a shuttle, where the pallet is put onto the shuttle and the shuttle will take the pallet to the far end of the rack structure and then will infill as it goes along, and then you can retrieve the product in a similar fashion. One of the advantages that this system allows you to do is to actually have racking above the dock doors, as we can see in the photograph on the left hand side. So there's enough space there to actually get to the doors themselves, but we're also using the cubic capacity above the dock doors to store racking. This is a great opportunity if we have a lot of vehicles arriving to collect product. We can have the product picked and put into the shuttle racks, ready and waiting for the vehicles to arrive to take them away. On this slide, we can see a comparison between all of the different types of racking that we've just discussed. So if we take an example, if we go to 3,717 square meters, if we follow the line across from the axis and we get to wide aisle racking and then take the line down, we can see that we can store 1,000 pallets in the wide aisle racking. If we take it slightly further across to very narrow aisle pallet rack, we can store just over 1,200 pallets. If we take it right to the end, to the satellite racking, we can actually store 2,000 pallets. So again, in terms of comparison, we're doubling the amount of storage compared to wide aisle racking. However, we do need more specialist equipment. So again, as we've discussed previously, this is another trade-off within the warehouse between space and cost. In this slide, we can see the different advantages and disadvantages of the different types of racking. So in terms of adjustable pallet racking, use of floor space isn't great because we have much wider aisles. The same goes for total cubic space as well. Speed of throughput is reasonable, but we also have full access to individual pallets. We don't need any specialist materials handling equipment, and we can operate on a first in, first out basis. In terms of storage, yes, within 4,636 square meters or 50,000 square feet, we can store 1,250 pallets. And the cost per location as a base figure, so we're using adjustable pallet racking or selective rack as a base figure, that's at 100. As we go further down, we can see with mobile racking that the use of floor space is much better, as is the use of cubic space. Speed of throughput, though, is very slow. As we mentioned, opening up and closing the mobile racking takes time. We can still get to individual pallets. We don't need any specialist materials handling equipment, and we can operate on a first in, first out basis. In terms of pallets stored, we can nearly double the amount of pallets stored in this area. And in terms of cost, yes, it can be 4 times the cost of standard adjustable pallet rack.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you want more information on Apprise Consulting, our online courses, books, training and consultancy services, please visit our website at www.appriseconsulting.co.uk.